This is the Dairy Download, brought to you by EverAg Insights and the International Dairy Foods Association, where we offer extra sharp market and policy insights on dairy. I'm your host, Phil Plord.
And I'm your co-host, Kathleen Wolfley.
This week's episode is about pizza. Who doesn't love pizza? We eat a lot of it in America, and this episode we're grateful to have a cheesemaker specializing in pizza cheese and the operator of a pizza restaurant. We'll get to that in a minute. First, Kathleen, where are we now?
Well, Phil, CME spot prices as of Wednesday, August 13th. CME block cheddar closed at $1.88, up 8 cents on the week. Barrels finished at $1.86, 7 cents higher. Spot butter closed at $2.28, a 15-cent decline from last Wednesday. And the non-fat dry milk market finished at $1.27, a cent and a half decline. Phil, what do you think is the most important thing right now?
I've kind of got labor markets on my mind. I guess somewhat famously now, the last jobs report included some major downward revisions to May and June data, and the July payroll expansion was a little bit below expectations, and so a little less robust on that front. And then watching initial jobless claims and continuing claims, the initial claims number seemed to spike in June and was coming down, and continuing claims were up a little bit, but they were hovering. But so we have a disappointing employment situation report for July. And then looking at the weekly data, the continuing claims jumped 2 weeks ago to a level not seen since 2021, and just reinforced the notion that for people that are out of work, it's a little bit harder to get back on someplace. And think about that through the lens of consumer spending. People that are losing their jobs, have lost their jobs, or fear losing their jobs are less likely to be spending big on eating out and other items. And it's also a very interesting dynamic where employment is a lagging indicator. And so we don't have recessions because we have unemployment. We tend to have unemployment because we have recessions. And economic growth in the first quarter was a little slow. A lot of uncertainty in the second quarter around tariffs and policy. And so maybe this is going to be a kind of a quick soft patch, and it's really not even that soft. But if we do see some slippage in the labor situation, that could have a negative impact on consumer spending in the months ahead. What about you?
Well, I guess I'll just add that I noticed just this morning from an ag sector perspective that John Deere is laying off or is expected to lay off some pretty notable employee units in Iowa, I believe, at one of their manufacturing facilities. So
Well, and again, it's not the first round either. They've been laying off
yeah,
people
right.
for a
It's not the
while.
first round. So just some intriguing dynamics as it relates to future employment statistics.
Not a disaster, but maybe more vulnerable.
Yeah. To me, the most important thing is the tone change in the butter market. So I noted in my rundown of prices that butter prices are down 15 cents in the past week. We're down 20 plus cents over the course of the last 10 days, 2 weeks. And ultimately, it just kind of seems like folks have looked around the butter market and said, sure seems like there's a lot of butter out here. And demand doesn't seem all that stellar, at least from a folks that generally would be microfixing this time of year to get ready for the holiday season. Folks appear to have what they need out there, and those that tend to resell butter that they bought early on in the year are sitting with a lot of product to move. And we'll add to that the cream market is still weak by historical standards. Last week, the central class 2 cream market was trading at a 126 multiple. That was down 12 points from the 5-year average. So there's a lot of fat out there heading into the holiday season. There's a lot of butter out there heading into the holiday season. And we've certainly seen a slip in the markets. I think the big question to me right now is, at the lowest prices since late May, early June, do the buyers start to step back in and lend a little bit of support?
Boy, the tone shift the conversations have turned kind of negative here, and I get it, but you have domestic demand's been pretty good. You have exports that have been really good. You have stocks that are below year prior levels, and yet the market is behaving like, yeah, we got enough. No problem. No worries. We can churn our way out of any situation. And look, the market is the market, right? It's I'm right, the market wrong is usually not a good approach to things. So that's what the market is telling us, and I think it has credibility. At the same time, anybody who's been around the butter market for more than a day and a half knows that it's very tough to throw in the towel on butter market prospects in the middle of August, right? It seems way early to say, well, this is done, nothing to see here, no problems, no nothing from here. And so it's a really interesting dynamic to kind of follow. It's like, well, could butter really be cheaper in September than in August? It doesn't happen very often, but we've seen it. And so how to approach it at this juncture is interesting, because the market is definitely saying, yeah, we're comfy. And those of us who've seen the market kind of jump up from behind the bushes with surprises over the years are like, are we sure? So that's kind of the challenge for me.
Yeah, I think this week, more than once, I've said the butter market tends to deliver surprises. So I don't know if I'm ready to throw in the towel yet.
But we are making recent lows anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a stat of the week?
I do have a stat of the week, plus 2.7% year over year. Headline inflation increased by plus 2.7%. That was in line with expectation and unchanged from June. So we are still seeing a fairly solid increases in food away from home inflation plus food at home inflation, but more or less in line with what we have been seeing.
And you can always find certain items, right, that capture the imagination. We were talking about eggs earlier this year and the massive inflation there. The one that, my stat of the week is $6.25. And that's the average price for a pound of ground beef at retail in the month of July, according to that same inflation report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That was up 14% year over year to another all time high. We just keep seeing higher and higher beef prices. Live cattle futures, new records again last week. And here's the thing: consumers continue to buy beef. Now, maybe July was different than June, but in June, fresh beef sales were up more than 3% at retail. And there really hasn't been a slowdown, even as prices go higher. So, one of the more fascinating things we've seen in our careers has been this beef story. And stay tuned. We're going to have an episode that covers some of it here coming up before too long. But 625 ground beef, not necessarily cheap.
And how does that compare? How does that compare to pork and chicken? So if you're a consumer going out to the grocery store, you're making a conscious choice to spend a lot more on beef as your protein choice compared to chicken and
Yeah, I
pork.
mean, pork chop prices have been, bouncing around. They're a little higher than they were a year ago, but nothing radical. Chicken is up some, but not nearly by the magnitude that beef is up. And in our protein business, we talk about, in our livestock business, we talk about substitution and will people switch to this because of that? And I'm sure there's some of that. There's people rotate around the different cuts, but in the main, one of the things we've learned this year is a reinforcement that Americans love beef.
All right, Phil, what's your fearless prediction?
Let's talk about corn. Let's talk about things that are
Ooh,
actually kind
okay.
of cheap these days. We've seen December corn trade under $4, and USDA surprised folks this week with the WASDE report call on corn yield at 188.8 bushels per acre. Now, the previous month's estimate was 181. The consensus call on this was for like 184 or something. The highest estimate that was out there on the street was 188.1, I think, and USDA took it past that. When we get the final counting in early 2026, I'm going to take the under on 188.8 as the final corn yield. It's a big number. We're going to have a big number, but I'm guessing that we overshot to the top side on that one. I'm going under on 188.8 corn yield. What about you?
I'm going to go with the cheese market. So the block market's been on a bit of a run for the last couple weeks. We're trading 188 as of August 13th. I'm going to say that we will not see block prices trade above $1.95 per pound in the next 30 days. Got a little bit of momentum here, but I think we top out here before we surpass $1.95.
Always kind of on the edge when it could be that in the next 30 minutes
Yeah, right.
based on our
Yeah.
recording time today. Get me rewrite,
Yeah,
as we used to say in the newspaper.
exactly.
But, but
It's been done before, but
we've gone to $1.95 to die here
yeah.
this year. And I think you're probably right about this one.
All right, Phil, you and I both are pizza lovers. This has been a fun episode. Let's get to our first guest.
We're excited today to have Kelly Norton with us. Kelly is the Senior Director, Enterprise Brand for Grande. It's a department focused on creating brand alignment and synergy across all business units for the purpose of strengthening Grande's brand positioning across the globe. Kelly, welcome to the Dairy Download.
Thank you for having me.
Grande is one of those companies that I love in part because it's a company that few people have probably ever heard of in the mainstream world, but the odds are tremendous that they've eaten Grande cheese on a pizza somewhere in America.
That's right.
I know a little bit about the Grande story. A lot of people don't. Tell us a little bit about Grande.
Yeah, so Grande is located in the heart of Wisconsin, dairy capital of the world, as we like to say. And we were founded in 1941 by our founder, Filippo Candela, who moved here from Montelepre, Sicily to pursue a better life for his family and brought along with him the classic artisan style of Italian cheesemaking. So that's where our roots are planted here now in the Midwest. So it's that culmination of Midwest dairy and classic artisan style Italian cheesemaking. And we've been doing that since 1941.
In this episode, we're focusing on pizza. Can you tell us about your relationship with your customers and pizza operators? It seems to be very deep, and I see social media posts with. I mean, I'm a kind of a pizza junkie, and you see people talk about the grande. I mean, this is a product that people love, generally speaking. Tell us about the relationship with the pizza industry.
Yeah, so Grande has a very special relationship with the pizza industry. In fact, we coin ourselves to be the advocate of the independent. So our primary business partner, our operators, are independent pizzerias and Italian restaurants. So our focus is not on large chains. We do have multi units, but the primary focus is really around that independent shop operator. And it goes beyond the cheese. The cheese is important. The finest Italian cheeses money can buy, one of our primary brand slogans, is consistent with how we delivered cheese in the 40s and continue to deliver cheese today. That operator expects, quality ingredients, consistency in their product, and a high performing pizza cheese. That's really the focus of our industry and our business. But above and beyond that, as the advocate of the independent, it goes even further than the cheese. It's the business solutions we help to bring forward to them that make their industry and their business flourish. And when we say industry, we're talking about kind of that pizza industry. How do we position them to be at their very best so that they can expand and continue to grow their patrons, delight in the pizza they're serving? So bringing forward things like insights, having a dedicated sales team on the ground. Unique to Grande, obviously, we go through distribution to make its way to the end operator, but we have a dedicated 60 ish sales associates coast to coast who are actually working hand in hand with the operator to talk to them about things like how they're pricing their menu, how much cheese they're using on their pizza, trending ingredients, just a variety of different ways that we can help them to grow their business, review their menus, look at their costing, all with the intention of giving them the tools and resources they need to be exceptional at their craft.
What kind of trends are you seeing in the pizza world? Different styles, flavor infusions, specific properties of pizza?
So this is an area we're actually incredibly passionate about. We have a dedicated industry insights manager and a culinary manager. So a few years back, we hired our first official chef within Grande who serves as our culinary manager. Those two individuals actually sit within our marketing team. So we're often discussing kind of emerging and key trends that are impacting pizza, how we can help operators put these trends into action. So, for example, we're seeing a lot of growth in the artisanal space lately with consumers. So they're looking for that high quality food experience, which we can help our operators to really understand how they do that. Things like homemade dough, featuring unique cheeses or finishing cheese as a topping like Asiago, all ways that we really help them to get after those trends. Another thing you're probably seeing emerging across the country is also snacking. So maybe smaller portion sizes or the pizza pinwheel. It's a health factor for the population as they think about having smaller meals maybe more frequently. So how can we help operators to adapt and adjust their menu to accommodate those people who are looking maybe not for a full size pizza with their family, but they're popping in kind of in between the lunch and dinner period and perhaps want a snack size option as well. So those are just some examples of the things that we have in our culinary toolbox that really help operators to think about how they're growing their business to scale.
I'm trying to think about what a snack size slice of pizza or snack size pizza is, because to me, a slice could be a snack.
It could be, you're right, and but not every pizzeria today serves pizza by the slice. So again, that's another way that we kind of come in and help advise and provide some guidance and support on what we're seeing from a trends perspective. So very helpful information for them.
Let's talk challenges or opportunities. What kind of challenges and opportunities are you seeing for pizzerias right now? And how is Grande helping customers navigate those?
Labor continues to be probably their number one challenge. In fact, 74% of operators reported that increase in labor cost in the past year, and 66% anticipate even further increases in the coming year. So it's not even just finding labor, it's also being able to support the labor with the appropriate wage. So we're seeing a lot of that across the industry. But if you think about the role that Grande can play there, of course, we can bring them insights and information around how they might look at recruitment or different tactics that they could take on specifically to attract associates or employees to join their operation. But it's really beyond that. It's the technology that we can deploy within our own facilities and operations that help them potentially reduce or shift around responsibilities of their employees in their shop. So if you think about the classic style, they'd receive a loaf of cheese in their shop and they'd have someone in the back responsible for dicing and shredding that cheese to prep it for the pizza. That has been a growing segment of our business because as you think about that product showing up already shredded, now they don't have to dedicate either the equipment or the employee time to shred the cheese. They can redeploy that person to help in the restaurant and shop in a different way. So that's an example. Or pre-slicing of cheese, anything that we can do like that that helps the operator minimize their cost and touching the product once it arrives are things that we're doing to accommodate some of those challenges that they're facing on the operational side of the restaurant.
Let's shift gears and talk about whey. Whey historically has been considered a byproduct product of the cheese making process. Now it's a major ingredient across food, beverages, health categories. How is Grande helping to meet the demand for high protein whey?
Grande was a bit ahead of this curve. I would say we started drying whey ingredients back in the mid 90s and really have transitioned that to functional ingredients. So, as you think about why that's so important, it's a proprietary process for us where we're manufacturing whey ingredients that help the functionality of food. So, the whey products themselves are going into large stream food manufacturers who are looking to do things with to help with texture, heat stability, freeze thaw capabilities, and of course, nutrition, as you mentioned. But our focus on whey ingredients is really within the food, beverage, and nutritional space. So we're working directly with the food manufacturer to think about how we can help improve their products as they go to market with their consumers. So if you think about making things creamier or cheesier or meatier, that's really the space for our functional ingredients and how our scientists are working directly with those companies to address those types of formulation challenges that they're facing. And so that's really where our team shines is in that space around whey.
Kelly, let's go to the other end of the supply chain and speak for a moment about the milk that Grande receives from farmers. My impression, having been around Wisconsin for a number of years, is Grande has also been kind of on the leading edge too at times of working with farms, um, helping them produce more and quality milk. Talk a little bit about the relationship that Grande has with its farmers.
Yeah, so we have a network of roughly 60 dedicated producers. It's a direct milk shipment to Grande, so no commingling of our product, and we're working with some of the best dairy farmers in the state of Wisconsin. I think that relationship is so critical. So much like our relationship, direct with our operators, where it's that business to business connection to help them think about how they can run, the best business possible, we take that same strategy really in relation to how we're working with our producer dairies. So things like having multiple on staff veterinarians here at Grande. I mean, that's something you won't find everywhere. they're working hand in hand with the farms on things like animal well-being and feed and just overall production. Really an important part of the process. In addition, we also support them with a bilingual trainer, so another way that we can bring resources and tools directly to the farm to help that farm reach their employees as well, with specified training. Those are just a couple examples that come to mind. But realistically, these are family led farms in many ways, and so the family connection of Grande's history and heritage and how that shows up with our dairy producers here, all within a 50-mile radius of one of our facilities. I think it really speaks volumes to that kind of Midwest feel, if you will, and how we think about the importance of that relationship. And it really does start with the quality of the milk.
Okay, it's no secret to the people who listen to this show that I kind of wrapped up in these food videos and influencing and thinking about how that's shaping the cheese and dairy industry and consumption. And I've come across a couple of instances recently where these folks, where the hobbyist home pizza maker has been getting their hands on grande cheese, and it seems it's through licit channels. I see it advertised online. Um, has it been a bit of a thing all of a sudden? With the rise of TikTok and the social media attention on pizza, that the run of the mill consumer and pizza hobbyist is interested in grande cheese and is buying a little bit of it.
Well, where they're buying it, I don't know. I mean, that's not a part of our go-to-market strategy today. We are not in retail, and I think that's what makes Grande unique is that it is reserved currently for food service. So where folks are able to get it today as a consumer, it's really not something available to you in retail. However, I can understand why they would want to experiment with our cheese at their home craft as well. So yes, I think there is an emerging trend with pizza enthusiasts. Certainly not hard to find folks on social media that are experimenting with new dough styles and sauces and cheese application and trending ingredients. So you can throw a stone and find somebody who's really passionate about pizza. But I think that's the thing that makes pizza exciting. It has been and remains the number one food in America, and there's a reason for that. People love it, and I think no matter if you're a home enthusiast or someone who enjoys going out and visiting new pizza shops in a market near you, certainly we benefit from that as Grande, but we love being that advocate of the independent, and certainly love that we are helping to shape the industry as well in relation to pizza.
Yeah, we keep asking, how much more pizza can we stuff into the average American, and it doesn't feel like we've reached maximum pizza yet. So that's got to be good news for Grande.
Yeah,
Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today, talking a little bit about Grande and pizza.
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Now let's get the restaurateur's perspective.
We're excited today to welcome Derek Lee to the show. Derek is the owner of Pizza Bruta in Madison, Wisconsin. He's a restaurateur with passion for Neapolitan wood-fired pizza. He has over 18 years of owner-operator experience and loves making fresh mozzarella by hand. Derek, welcome to the Dairy Download.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Derek, you have an interesting background. You worked for a time with Organic Valley, so you've been in the dairy industry. And then tell us how you got from there to being a pizza restaurant owner.
Yeah, I can even go even further back. I worked for Michael Field's Agricultural Institute, and I used to milk cows at 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. for a year, and then during the day help the agronomists on their projects. So I've milked cows for a year, and then I worked for Organic Valley. I was the food service national sales manager for them. And how I became a restaurateur is during my sales meetings. I had the privilege of flying, to New York 1 week. The next week I'd be in LA. I was a national food service manager, and for some reason I had a calling. I had this, I'm a Lutheran from North Dakota originally, so we like to talk about a calling, an idea, being called to work. And I had this calling toward going to wood-fired pizzerias after my sales meetings. It's kind of bizarre, kind of odd, but I'd always try to find, like, if I was in LA, I'd go to Pizzeria Mozza. If when I was in New York, I'd go try to find the latest, greatest wood-fired pizza restaurant. If I was in Phoenix, I went to Pizzeria Bianco. And so over time, I decided to write a business plan. And then I decided this is when I was single. During my vacations, I'd go to LA and I'd train with this guy named Pepe Miele, who had a wood fired pizzeria. He was from Naples. And I got trained in how to make Neapolitan pizza and make fresh mozzarella from him. He taught me how to make fresh mozzarella by hand. And pretty soon I was quitting my great job at Organic Valley and starting a pizzeria in Madison, Wisconsin.
Well, and I'd say that many people who have lived in Madison or have driven through Madison a time or two know something about Pizza Bruta or have stopped in. So tell us a little bit more about your restaurant.
We make pizza the original way. In other words, I went back and was trained on how to make pizza in a wood oven. The fire is 800 degrees. And I like to say we make pizza the hardest way possible, the most difficult way possible. We have to tinker with the fire. We make the fresh mozzarella by hand every day that we use on the pizzas. It's we crush the tomatoes by hand, and in a mill. But it's a very artisan kind of place. I really wanted to get my hands in the dough and in the cheese, and so I guess our pizzeria reflects that. And the other thing is that I wanted to do was, coming from Organic Valley and coming from kind of the spirit of kind of local dairy, local farming, and having this great bounty at the Dane County Farmers Market, I wanted to try to emulate what they do in Naples, which is, they buy the tomatoes from Mount Vesuvius, the buffalo mozzarellas from Caserta. It really kind of represents a food system right there. And so as much as we have this great dairy industry in Wisconsin, so we try to bring that into the pizzeria and showcase them.
So where are you making the mozzarella? How are you physically taking the milk off the farm and getting it to a cheese on the pizza?
Well, we have a lot of great partners. One of those partners is Grande, and Grande makes the curd for us. And then we have another great partner in Greco. Greco is a distributor here in Madison and in Milwaukee and mainly in Chicago. They're out of Chicago. We have these great partners that help us get the curd, every day. And what we do is we use these hotel pans, which are just basically big pans, and we boil salted water. And we pour that over curd that we break up by hand. And it's basically just set up whole milk, right? The milk comes into the vat, they set it up with a culture, they bag it and they ship it, right? And then I get it and I kind of finish it. So to say that I'm making cheese isn't quite correct. I'm kind of finishing the cheese really with boiling salt water. And we make fresh mozzarella balls in the restaurant for our caprese salads, and our caprese sandwiches. But then for the pizza cheese, what I do is I leave that in the hotel pan after I've mixed and hand stretched it and hand pulled it and blended it together till it's smooth, and incorporated the salt into it. What we do is then we put it in the hotel pan overnight and we let the fat set. If we don't let the fat set overnight, then a lot of the whey and things like kind of bleaches out if you use it right away, and the pizzas become a little watery. So that's why we set that cheese up overnight, and then we use that for pizza cheese.
What characteristics are you looking for in that cheese, when it hits the oven? And what about your process helps that all come together?
Well, what I'm really looking for is I really want some good butter fat. And I really want a melting quality. I have the one thing that you realize when you run a business is that there are these ideas and then there are things, right? And the idea is to do fresh mozzarella by hand. But then the thing of it is to make it work in a 800-degree oven, right? And have it cook correctly and have it cooked down into a nice splotch that looks appetizing. And so, it is a challenge, to do that. But what we're looking for is something that, cooking in an 800-degree oven has its its obvious challenges. It's a quick bake, and so I need something that cooks down, has that contrast. What I'm really looking for is like, I've got these great tomatoes from Italy, right? That have certain acidity to them, and I need a really high fat mozzarella to create that kind of counterbalance, right? Of the acid and the fat, right? Those are the things that flavor wise we're looking for, real kind of dramatic interactions between the acid and the fat. And so when we make the mozzarella, we're really careful not to push too much of that fat out of it. Because if you overwork the fresh mozzarella, and you are basically pushing all that fat down the drain. And so we really try to be delicate with it, bring it up to temp, and to capture most of that butter fat, that will cook down perfectly on that pizza.
If we could shift gears a little bit, let's talk about demand trends and
Yeah.
what you're seeing from the consumer. Are consumers sitting out there today and still looking for that very fresh, handmade type pizza, or do you see consumers veering toward more of a, oh, hey, just get me in quick, and not
Yeah.
necessarily looking for that experience?
Well, I'm in kind of like a niche kind of specialty world. And, I'm seeing people that are really like, right now we have this pizza on the menu. We have two kind of fresh market pizzas. We have one where I'm using ricotta and I'm adding lemon to it. And we're just slicing local zucchini with some cracked pepper. And that's really, really flying off the deck right now. But also I'm doing a burrata pizza right now with, local cherry tomatoes. And I have to say, like, the word burrata now, it's very hot. It's sizzling. People are really excited about it, and I'm really impressed that how quickly people learned about burrata, experienced it, and then kind of are kind of demanding. And when's that? That people are asking, when are you bringing that burrata pizza back? And so I really think that, what I'm seeing is a lot of demand for that. I'm also seeing a lot of demand for soft cheese. We our goat cheese pizzas. So we've been, using a Montchev is a manufacturer here in Wisconsin that makes just beautiful goat cheese. And there's, I think, maybe because of the health reasons, or the perceived health differences there, or also maybe allergies, the goat cheese area has been very strong, very strong. The base of our pizza is mozzarella, but then we like to add gorgonzola. We like to add goat cheese to that pizza. And then there's also the finishing cheeses that you can put on a pizza afterwards. After it cooks, I think there's a lot of interest and value adding you can add there by using a sartori, blended cheddar or something like that, and spreading that on afterwards. Or some of the harder cheeses as well that are in demand right now, like some of the Parmesan styles.
Let's talk a little bit about convenience, because
Yeah.
I think Phil and I have probably said 100,000 times in 2025 alone, the American consumer is lazy and increasingly lazy. Do you see your customers looking for convenience in their restaurant experience? What about delivery? Is there a challenge in that wood-fired space to delivering convenience, to delivering out to a college dorm room?
Yeah. Well, I'll just say that we run a quick service restaurant. So this is a Chipotle model. So you come in, you order, you sit down, the pizzas come out to you, the salads come out to you. The crazy thing about what I do is the oldest way to make pizza. It's the original way. It's what they call in Italy vera, which means the true vera pizza napoletana, which is the true way of making pizza. I think there's a pizza for all occasions, so I'm not going to say it's the true way, but the irony is the oldest way is actually the fastest way. My pizzas cook in 90 seconds. And so I can meet the demand of today's consumer. I agree with you. The trends coming out of COVID for takeout and delivery just have continued and even grown. I think that it does pose some challenges to us, given that we are a wood fired pizza and it's always best eaten right out of the oven. But we are seeing like our takeout business, continue to grow. And our delivery business is very strong. So all those things. So what happened during, COVID is we lost everybody coming in, right? And except we did run a takeout, a touchless takeout business on the street that was supported by the community. But we also added all those third-party apps. And what we've seen is that those apps, that demand has continued and grown, and the takeout business continues to grow. So people are continuing to want to eat takeaway.
One of the other topics we talk about, often in our work life is, how much more pizza can we possibly stuff into the average American? What do you see for the future of pizza for your restaurant and for maybe the pizza space in general?
I see more and more growth. I mean, I think that what we've been able to do is kind of tweak our menus. We do pizza and salads, but I think that by tweaking our menus, creating more healthy items, more items that people are looking for, cheeses they're looking for, vegetables on those pizzas that they're looking for. We put arugula on pizzas, so it's like getting your salad on your pizza. I think that we'll continue to see growth in this segment. I think there's some really beautiful, interesting things happening. I think, you see Detroit style, all the different styles that are really starting to hit, the whole idea of a square, my stepdad's from Brooklyn. And so I would get back there and we go to a place called L&B Spumoni Gardens and we get a square. And I always thought, what's this? I've never seen anything like this anywhere else. And now you can go into the frozen section and you can get a Detroit style pizza. So I think I think we have better operators. I think we have better execution on styles. And I think there's a growth in styles. You have Pizza Taglio is another one, which is another Italian style, which is kind of like a Detroit square, only more like a focaccia that we see growth there. So I think that the segment continues. You're starting to see more like chefs and more white tablecloth type folks kind of enter in and push trends and push us into areas we've never been in before. So I think there's a lot of innovation happening. I think there's some interesting things happening with equipment, like the different ovens that we're starting to see getting used that can execute on these styles. And I think that there'll be a continuation of growth in the Neapolitan segment, just because I think it appeals to consumers who are looking for a product that's fresh. It's not as heavy as other pizzas. And there's a lot of creativity in ingredients and health benefits in ingredients there too.
Well, Derek, thank you so much for joining us on the Dairy Download, talking to us about Pizza Bruta and your journey from working in the dairy industry to now owning a restaurant in Madison. So thanks again for joining us on the Dairy Download.
Oh, thank you for having me.
That's a wrap for today's show. As always, we want to thank our production team, Matt Herrick, Mariah Minnick, Andrew Jerome, and Jeff Cullen at IDFA, and Abby Bauer over here at Everag. If you are interested in what Kathleen and I do for our day jobs, check us out at ever.ag. Remember, if you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.
Thanks for listening to the Dairy Download. Until next time, stay sharp.